We all know that the world of high finance can be a very lucrative one if you can break in. And while the Wolf of Wall Street days of partying like no other are a thing of the past, the money is still flowing in. You've got jobs like investment banking or private equity or a quant trader where the salaries can be six figures right out of college and they just get bigger and bigger and bigger as you get more experience. But make sure you stick around until the end to find out what I consider to be the most underrated job in high finance, and dare I say, the best work-life balance. But before we get to that, we gotta start with some of the other ones. First up, investment banking. Very simply put, investment banks are kind of like the middlemen in between buyers and sellers of businesses. You can think of them as the one that manages any sort of acquisition or merger of two companies. Now, that's super simplistic, and of course they offer other services like fundraising or IPOs, but you get the general gist. I've oftentimes compared them to real estate agents because it really is the best analogy. You're essentially a middleman that brings a buyer and a seller together, and then you get paid some sort of commission in order to handle all the legal documents, the structuring. But similar to a real estate agent, that means you just do the work whenever the work is available. Meaning, because you work for a client, you have to be available 24/7 to that client. And that is the number one reason why investment bankers end up working 80 to 100 to 120 hours a week, because you always have to be available to that client. As far as compensation goes, you can expect a first-year investment banking analyst to make around $170,000 or more total all in, including their base comp and their bonuses and whatnot. Next up, you've got a natural jumping off point from investment banking into private equity. Private equity companies are a little bit different. Think of them more so as a portfolio manager. But instead of managing a bunch of different stocks, they're gonna be managing a bunch of different businesses. They'll buy a company and then they'll try to optimize it, grow it over the course of, say, 3 to 5 to maybe 7 years, and then they'll turn around and they'll try to sell it to an even bigger private equity firm for a profit, or the biggest ones, they'll even try to do an IPO. The funny thing is, because these private equity firms are buying and selling businesses constantly, they naturally are the perfect client for an investment bank. So oftentimes they work really closely together. And that's also why they almost exclusively hire junior investment bankers to work at private equity firms. Lots of IBs even have this 2-year specific analyst program because after those 2 years, they expect you to leave and go to a private equity firm. And it works out great for both people because the private equity firms need that relationship with the banks to make sure they have someone that can buy and sell those businesses for them, but the banks need that relationship with the private equity firm because those are the clients. That's who they're making money off of. Lots of people say that work-life balance in private equity is a whole lot better than investment banking, but I personally disagree a little bit with that. Don't get me wrong, it is marginally better. As a private equity associate, you're probably not working as much on weekends, but your weekdays can still easily be 9 a.m. to 10, 11 p.m. So maybe you're working 65 to 70 hours a week and not those 80 plus that investment bankers are, but in my opinion, it's still only marginally better. As for compensation, a first-year PE associate is gonna be pretty similar to that graduate, that second-year analyst from investment banking. So think a low six-figure starting salary and then some sort of bonus component as well. But the thing that makes private equity really attractive to a lot of people is this ability to co-invest with the fund. So a lot of private equity firms, even at the junior level, will let junior associates put their own money into investments that the private equity fund owns, and then say in 3 to 5 years when they go to sell that company, maybe your money has doubled, tripled, quadrupled in size. The opportunity is really endless there, but that's what makes it really lucrative. Now, before we switch gears a little bit and talk about traders, if you have questions about investment banking or private equity, make sure to drop those in the comments below and I will make a video to explain any type of question you may have. Okay, but back to the traders. Quant traders, while technically are in the world of high finance, they're a little different from investment bankers or private equity because they're typically gonna be like mathematicians or coders and probably have a master's degree. Their job is essentially to look at mathematical models or code to essentially find opportunities in the stock market. And it's not about hitting that 1000% trade all the time. No, it's actually quite the opposite. They just work with so much money, like tens of millions of dollars, that they're looking for that 1% trade or 2% trade. But when you scale it to $10 million, you're making $200,000 in a single day, and they just do that over and over and over and over. As far as compensation goes, quant traders can make a ton of money right out of school. I'm talking easily 200,000 plus, and then some sort of commission structure or bonus for really good performance. And the crazy part is, if you make your firm like $1 billion, for example, then you could potentially even be walking away with $1 million check yourself. It's not unheard of. That being said, in my personal opinion, this job is super, super stressful because you're playing with millions and millions of dollars every single day. And if you mess up and lose the firm a lot of money, you can very quickly be let go. Definitely the least job security of any of these high finance jobs. Now, hopefully you stuck around until now, because while everybody knows about the jobs that we've already talked about, I'm gonna give you the cheat code. The most underrated job in high finance: great pay, great work-life balance, great job security. Drum roll, please. It's corporate development. Corp dev is the little known secret in high finance, and honestly, I think it gets a pretty bad rep just because it's not as flashy or sexy as the other jobs that we've talked about. But in my personal opinion, corp dev is really incredible, and it actually is a very common exit point from investment banking or private equity. I personally work for a highly acquisitive company that is part of a portfolio that a private equity company owns, so we are constantly doing acquisitions just like an investment bank would do. My team is relatively pretty small, which means I have a lot of responsibility, and also I get to be a part of the negotiations and the overall strategy, which is something you never get to do as a junior investment banker. And because we're actually owned by a private equity firm, we get a lot of support from them too. So it's not all just falling on our shoulders all the time. And because of that, and we know that private equity guys are working a lot of hours, that makes my life way more manageable. I'm working closer to 40 to 50 hours a week, which is very manageable. And as far as pay goes, it is less than some of these other ones we've talking about, but still pretty incredible, where starting salaries can be between $100,000 to $120,000 with bonuses around 20 to 30%. So easily in your first year, you can be getting close to that 150 mark. And as you work your way up, similar to those private equity guys, you might even get the opportunity to co-invest in your company. So you get great pay, a great career trajectory, and great work-life balance. What's not to like? So those are some of the high finance career options that you should be considering, and also why I think everyone should be considering corp dev. If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure to smash that like button down below, subscribe to the channel, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.